7 years had passed since Kira chose a mechanic over an empire. The storage room they lived in had changed into something that looked like a real home. The walls had drawings of machines next to human artwork. The shelves held both dragon books about math and Earth stories. They had a kitchen where Marcus tried to teach Kira how to make food you could actually eat, but it didn't always work out. One day, while they were cooking together with flour all over them even though the recipe was simple, Kira suddenly grabbed the counter's edge. Her green skin turned lighter. "Kira!" Marcus ran over to her right away. "What's wrong?" "I don't know. I'm not sure." She put her hand on her stomach, her golden eyes wide and confused. "Something feels different. Strange. Maybe I ate something bad." "We're going to the medical center right now." Dr. Yuki Tanaka did the tests herself. She looked more and more confused as she checked the results. Marcus held Kira's hand, feeling her cooler-than-human fingers shaking a little in his grip. "Well," Tanaka finally said, her voice sounding both shocked and amazed. "This has never happened before. Princess Kira, you're pregnant." The words hung in the air like impossible math. "That's not possible," Kira said flatly. "Dragon and human bodies aren't the same. Our genes are totally different. 2 different species can't have a baby together. It's impossible." Apparently, Tanaka pulled up a glowing display showing cells that seemed to dance between 2 different paths. Impossible just became possible. "The baby is growing with a mixed genetic structure I've never seen written about anywhere. It's like your bodies are working together to figure it out." Marcus stared at the display, his mind trying to understand. "We're having a baby." "You're having something completely new," Tanaka corrected. "This child will be the first human-dragon hybrid ever recorded. I'll need to watch this very carefully. We're in unknown territory." After they left the medical center, they walked through the industrial area. Kira stopped at the place where they usually watch Saturn's rings painting the sky. "Marcus," she said quietly, "this changes everything. A hybrid child. The Empire will have to know. The rules say I have to report any big biological developments. And when they find out, we'll deal with it," Marcus said, pulling her close. "Together like we always do." "You're not afraid?" "Terrified," he admitted. "But also, Kira, we're going to have a child." "Our child. Something impossible that's happening anyway. That's kind of what we do, isn't it?" She laughed, the sound mixed with tears, and kissed him there in the orange light of the alien moon, while their impossible future grew inside her. But neither of them saw the Dragon scout ship high above. Its sensors were recording everything, sending data back to an empire that had been watching much more carefully than they knew. The message came 3 months into Kira's pregnancy, when her body had started showing visible changes. Her stomach was getting bigger in ways that made even the regular people in the colony whisper in amazed confusion. Emperor Vorak's holographic image filled the workshop with imperial power, but this time something was different in his serious face, something that might have been uncertainty. "Kira," he said, his musical voice softer than Marcus had ever heard it. "I have received the biological reports. A hybrid child, an impossibility made real." "Father," Kira straightened, one hand protectively on her belly. "I was going to tell you formally, but you were afraid," Vorak finished. "As you should be. What you've done breaks 700 years of genetic purity rules. The Council of Bloodlines is demanding your exile be made permanent. Several military commanders are calling for more extreme actions." Marcus stepped forward, his jaw tight. "If you're threatening—" "I am not threatening," the Emperor interrupted. And now Marcus saw it clearly. The way Vorak's eyes kept looking at Kira's belly, something like wonder mixed with regret. "I am trying to understand." trying to see what I failed to see before. The Emperor's image flickered, then continued. 7 years ago, I sent you away as punishment for being what I thought was imperfect. I watched the recordings of your work on the atmosphere crisis. I read Counselor Zith's reports. I have seen, daughter, what you are truly capable of, and I have spent these years understanding how badly I messed up. Kira's hand found Marcus's, squeezing tight. I wronged you, Vorak said, and each word seemed hard for him to say. I let cultural prejudice blind me to your brilliance. I punished you for not looking a certain way while ignoring everything that truly mattered. And now you carry something never seen before. A bridge between two species. Proof that life finds ways we cannot predict. Father, why are you telling me this? Because I am dying. The words fell like gravity turning upside down. The doctors give me maybe 2 years. A genetic problem caused, ironically, by our culture's obsession with purity. Too many generations of controlled breeding. Not enough diversity? His laugh was bitter. The very thing I punished you for might have saved our bloodline. He leaned forward, his expression intense. Return to Draconia Prime, Kira. Bring your human mate. Bring your hybrid child. I will formally name you Crown Princess, heir to the Imperial throne. Your child will be raised as royalty, protected, celebrated. You will have everything I denied you and more. You will have my apology, my recognition, my blessing. And what about Marcus? Kira asked quietly. In your empire, what would he be? He would be your consort. Honored, protected, granted full citizenship and rights. As the human who married above his station, Kira finished. The primitive who got lucky. The curiosity in your court, Vorak's expression tightened. He would be treated with all proper respect. But never as an equal, Marcus said, understanding flooding through him. I'd be the exotic pet, the human who caught a princess's eye. Every achievement would be said to be because of Kira's influence. Every failure would prove I didn't belong. The Emperor didn't deny it. This is my offer, Vorak said. Return within 6 months. Accept your place as Crown Princess, or remain in exile with a child who will be hunted by those in the Empire who see hybrid existence as wrong. Here you are safe only because you are forgotten. But a hybrid child cannot be hidden, cannot be ignored. You will need the Empire's protection whether you want it or not. The transmission ended, leaving them in silence. He's right, Kira said softly. About the danger. There are groups in the Empire that would see our child as a threat to genetic purity. Extremists who might, then we fight, Marcus said simply. We've built something here, Kira. A life, a home, a family. I won't give that up because some empire thinks they get to decide what kinds of love are acceptable. And what about our child? Kira's eyes blazed with protective fire. What kind of life can we give them here? Growing up as the only hybrid in human space, never knowing their dragon heritage, always being the alien freak. She stopped, realizing what she'd said. The same words that had been used against her. Marcus pulled her close. Our child will grow up knowing they're loved, knowing they're wanted, knowing their mother is the most brilliant person in 700 worlds and their father is a pretty decent mechanic who makes terrible jokes. He kissed her forehead. That's what we can give them. Not an empire, not a throne, but a home where they don't have to be perfect to be valued. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's just the only choice I can live with. What neither of them knew was that in the shadows of the Dragon Court, other forces were moving. Forces that saw Emperor Vorak's sentimentality as weakness and a hybrid child as the perfect excuse to seize power. They got married in the colony's plant garden, a converted plant-growing room where earth plants grew alongside dragon plants Kira had grown, creating a strange and beautiful mix of two worlds. Governor Castellanos performed the ceremony. reading vows Marcus and Kira had written themselves. Dr. Tanaka stood as witness alongside the engineering team that had become their family. Even Diego Rohr attended, keeping respectful distance but present. 7 years of watching Kira save the colony had taught him something about recognizing value. Kira wore robes that combined dragon elegance with human practicality, changed to fit her 6-month pregnancy. Marcus wore his best suit, bought from an Earth catalog at a cost that made him wince, but seemed worth it when he saw the way Kira's eyes lit up. "I, Marcus Chen," he said when his turn came, voice steady despite his hammering heart. "Take you, Kira, as my wife. Not my princess, not my employer. My partner, my equal, the person who makes me want to be better than I am. I promise to see you always, to listen when you speak, to love not just your brilliance, but your terrible coffee, and your absolutely justified stubbornness and the way you hum when you're concentrating. I promise to be home." Kira's voice carried its musical sounds but trembled with emotion. "I, Kira, take you, Marcus, as my husband. You saw me when I was invisible. You valued me when I was worthless. You offered me something I'd never had, the freedom to be imperfect and still be loved." Her hand rested on her belly. "I promise to build with you, to create with you, to face whatever comes with you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're mine and I am yours. And that's enough." When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in applause. And for a moment in a converted plant-growing room on Titan, everything felt possible. The baby kicked for the first time during the reception, and Kira grabbed Marcus's hand, pressing it to where their impossible child was growing. He felt the flutter of movement, proof of life that shouldn't exist, and understood with absolute clarity that he would fight anything, empire, rules, physics itself, to protect this. But 3 decks above in the colony's communication center, a priority transmission was being received from Dragon Space, not from Emperor Vorak, from someone else entirely. Their daughter was born on a night when Titan's methane storms painted the sky in sheets of liquid light. The labor lasted 14 hours. Dr. Tanaka and her team worked with focused intensity, monitoring vitals that didn't quite match human or dragon norms, adjusting for biology that was inventing itself in real time. When the baby finally came out, crying with a voice that carried musical sounds no human infant could make, Marcus felt something in his chest crack open. She was perfect, impossibly, undeniably perfect. Her skin was a pale green, lighter than Kira's but definitely not human. Her eyes, when they opened, were gold flecked with brown. She had her mother's elegant bone structure and her father's stubborn chin. She was every shade of impossible made real. "She's beautiful," Marcus whispered, tears streaming down his face as Tanaka placed the baby in Kira's arms. "She's everything," Kira corrected, her own tears falling onto their daughter's face, making the baby scrunch up in adorable confusion. They named her Arya, a name that worked in both human and dragon languages, meaning song, harmony, the space where different notes find common ground. For 3 perfect weeks, they lived in a bubble of exhausted, delirious happiness. Marcus learned to change diapers and mix formula that worked for hybrid biology. Kira sang lullabies in her musical language while Marcus hummed earth melodies, and Arya seemed to find both equally soothing. The colony civilians brought gifts, offered help, marveled at the miracle growing in their midst. Then Emperor Vorak's second message arrived. His holographic image appeared in their quarters at 3 a.m., waking them from the light sleep all new parents learn to treasure. But it wasn't Vorak who appeared. It was a dragon Marcus didn't recognize. Tall, elegant, with robes carrying military symbols and eyes like ice. "I am General Thrace, commander of the Imperial Purity Legion," The figure announced. Emperor Vorak is indisposed. The Council of Bloodlines has reviewed the matter of the hybrid abomination you have created, and our judgment is final. What have you done to my father? Kira demanded. Arya held protectively against her chest. The Emperor suffers from advancing illness. His judgment has become unreliable. The Council has assumed temporary authority until succession is determined. Thrace's smile was sharp. And we have determined that the hybrid child represents an unacceptable corruption of dragon genetic heritage. You will surrender the infant to Imperial custody for study and eventual humane termination. Refusal will result in... Marcus lunged for the holographic controls, cutting the transmission. His hands shook as he turned to Kyra, who'd gone absolutely still, her face a mask of protective fury. They want our baby, she said, voice flat and dangerous in a way Marcus had never heard. They want to take Arya and study her like an experiment and then kill her. That's not happening. No. Kira's eyes blazed. It's absolutely not. But Marcus, they have resources we can't match. Military ships, tracking technology, legal authority under a dozen treaties. If they come for her, then we make sure they can't find her. What followed was 72 hours of the most intense planning of Marcus's life. They couldn't leave the colony. Arya was too young for space travel, and any ship leaving Titan would be tracked. They couldn't hide in the colony. It was too small, too monitored. They needed something else. It was Kira who found the solution. Her engineer's mind cutting through panic to see the pattern no one else could. The abandoned mining outpost, she said, pulling up maps on her datapad. Section 12. Closed 15 years ago after the collapse. Everyone thinks it's structurally unsound, but I reviewed the engineering reports. It's not dangerous. It's just expensive to maintain, so they shut it down. We could live there, hidden off all official systems. Live in an abandoned mine. Marcus looked at the maps. It was kilometers of tunnels, forgotten storage, equipment left to rust. With a newborn. With our newborn who will be alive rather than in Imperial custody. They moved under cover of a particularly violent methane storm. Marcus carrying Arya in a specially modified carrier, while Kira hauled equipment. Dr. Tanaka helped, providing medical supplies and promising to cover their disappearance for as long as possible. The tunnels of Section 12 were exactly as abandoned as the report suggested. Dark, cold, filled with the echoes of machinery that hadn't run in over a decade. But Kira moved through them with purpose, her engineer's eyes seeing possibilities where Marcus saw only darkness. Here, she said, finding a junction point near what had once been a maintenance hub. This connects to colony power without being on official meters. We can tap it. And this ventilation shaft links to the main atmospheric system. We'll have air. Water lines run through that wall. You're talking about building a home in an abandoned mine. I'm talking about building a hideout. A safe place long enough to figure out our next move. What she didn't say, what neither of them wanted to acknowledge, was that this might not be temporary, that they might be choosing a life in shadows, raising their daughter in darkness, all to keep her safe from an empire that saw her existence as wrong. But when Arya made her small musical sounds, when her gold-brown eyes looked up at them with trust, no infant should have to learn was misplaced. The choice became simple. They would do whatever it took. General Thrace arrived at New Cascade 3 weeks later with a battle cruiser and 40 armed soldiers. Governor Castellanos, to his credit, refused to cooperate, standing in his office with Dr. Tanaka beside him, insisting he had no idea where Marcus and Kira had gone. They left during the storm, Castellanos said, his voice steady despite the armed dragons in his office. Took a transport pod. We lost tracking in the atmospheric interference. They could be anywhere in the Saturn system by now. Thrace studied him with cold eyes. You're lying. No transport pods are missing. Every vessel is accounted for. Then they're still on Titan. Castellanos spread his hands. It's a big moon. Feel free to search. What followed was 2 weeks of systematic harassment. Dragon soldiers swept through the colony, scanning every compartment, questioning every civilian. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. Marcus and Kira had vanished into the infrastructure itself, becoming ghosts in the colony's skeleton. In Section 12, they lived in a reality that felt like suspended time. Marcus rigged power from the main grid, careful to keep the draw small enough to avoid detection. Kira purified water using equipment she'd rebuilt from salvage. They slept in shifts, took turns caring for Arya, survived on ration bars and recycled hope. Arya thrived despite everything. She grew faster than human infants, her hybrid biology apparently taking the advantages of both species. By 2 months, she could hold her head up steadily. By 3, she was babbling in sounds that seemed to shift between human sounds and dragon music. She's trying to talk, Kira said one evening, watching Arya make elaborate sounds at a piece of salvaged equipment that had somehow become her favorite toy, both languages at once. She doesn't know they're supposed to be separate. Marcus watched his daughter, his impossible perfect daughter, and felt something harden in his chest. They're hunting her because she's proof their genetic purity is wrong. Because she's beautiful and healthy and thriving and that terrifies them? Yes. So we need to make her more than just proof. We need to make her impossible to kill. Kira looked at him. What do you mean? I mean, we go public. Really public. We broadcast her existence not just to the Empire, but to everyone. Every human colony. Every neutral species. We make Arya so visible that killing her becomes politically impossible. That's incredibly risky. If it backfires, at least we'll have tried something other than hiding in the dark. Marcus picked up Arya, who gurgled happily and grabbed his nose with surprising strength. She deserves better than this. Better than living in abandoned tunnels. Better than being hunted. It took another week to set up, using equipment Kira built from spare parts and Marcus's knowledge of the colony's communication systems. They recorded a message, both of them with Arya visible in the frame. Her gold-green skin and musical sounds undeniable proof of what she was. My name is Kira, Crown Princess of the Dragon Empire, she began, her voice steady. This is my husband, Marcus Chen, and this is our daughter, Arya. She is the first documented hybrid between our species. She is healthy, thriving, and alive. The Dragon Empire has declared her an abomination, Marcus continued. They want to take her, study her, and kill her because her existence challenges their belief in genetic purity. Because she's proof that life is more creative than prejudice. We're making this public, Kira said, holding Arya close. Because our daughter deserves to exist. Because love that creates life shouldn't be punished. Because if the Empire kills her, the galaxy should know what they've done. They broadcast it on every frequency, sent it through every channel, uploaded it to every network they could access. Within hours, it had spread through human space. Within days, it had reached neutral territories. Within a week, the galaxy was watching. The response was explosive. Human colonies expressed outrage at the dragon threat. Neutral species councils called for diplomatic intervention. Even within the Dragon Empire, voices began to rise. Younger generations questioning the Purity Legion's extremism. Scientists fascinated by the biological implications. citizens who saw a baby and refused to accept her execution as justice. General Thrace, suddenly facing not just a hidden target but a galactic incident, found his authority challenged at every turn. The Council of Bloodlines split into groups, some supporting immediate action, others advocating caution, still others arguing that Arya's existence might be studied rather than eliminated. And in the Imperial Medical Center on Draconia Prime, Emperor Vorak watched the broadcast from his deathbed, saw his daughter holding his hybrid granddaughter, and made a decision that would change everything. He activated his emergency executive authority, powers reserved for moments of imperial crisis, and issued a decree that transmitted across every official channel. Princess Kira and her hybrid daughter are under my direct protection. Any action taken against them will be considered treason against the imperial throne. Furthermore, I formally name Kira as Crown Princess and heir to the Empire. Her daughter Arya is recognized as Imperial bloodline. This is my final decree. The transmission ended with Vorak's vital signs flatlining. The Emperor was dead. And in the abandoned tunnels of Section 12, Marcus and Kira looked at each other, understanding that everything had changed and nothing would ever be simple again. The funeral summons arrived 3 days after Vorak's death. It wasn't a request. It was a command backed by imperial rules that even hiding in abandoned tunnels couldn't avoid. If Kira didn't attend her father's funeral and claim the throne, her absence would be considered giving up, leaving the Empire to the Council of Bloodlines, which meant leaving it to General Thrace and the Purity Legion. "We have to go," Kira said, her voice heavy. "If I don't claim succession, they'll use it as legal justification to hunt Arya. My father gave us protection with his last breath. I can't waste that." "Going to Draconia Prime with Arya is insane," Marcus countered. "It's walking into the lion's den with our daughter as bait. It's claiming what my father gave us, what he should have given me decades ago." They argued for hours, Arya sleeping peacefully between them, unaware that her entire future hung in balance. Finally, Marcus understood what Kira had understood from the beginning. They had no choice that wasn't terrible. The only question was, which terrible choice gave Arya the best chance to survive? They emerged from Section 12 to find Governor Castellanos waiting with a dragon diplomatic vessel. Not a military ship, but a civilian transport carrying neutral ambassadors and human observers. The galaxy's eyes were watching. Public execution had become politically impossible. The journey to Draconia Prime took 5 days. Marcus spent them teaching Arya to smile, making her laugh with ridiculous faces, trying to give her normal moments in a thoroughly abnormal situation. Kira reviewed Imperial succession rules and prepared for battles that would be fought with law and tradition instead of weapons. Draconia Prime appeared in the viewport like a jewel of severity. All elegant towers and controlled beauty, a planet-wide monument to perfect looks. Marcus felt his stomach tighten, understanding deeply what Kira had tried to escape. The funeral was everything he'd feared. Thousands of dragons in formal robes, all tall, all thin, all elegant, all staring at the green princess with the human husband and the hybrid child. The whispers followed them like knives, but there were other sounds too. Younger dragons speaking her name with something like awe. Scientists watching Arya with fascination rather than horror. Citizens who'd seen the broadcast and formed their own opinions about genetic purity. The Empire was fracturing, and Kira stood at the fault line. The succession ceremony took place in the Hall of Bloodlines, A massive room where every emperor for 700 years had claimed their throne. The Council of Bloodlines assembled. 12 elder dragons representing the Empire's most powerful families. General Thrace stood at their head, his expression carved from ice. "Princess Kyra," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You have returned to claim succession, but imperial law is clear. The heir must be genetically pure, culturally untainted, and politically viable. You have married outside your species, created a hybrid abomination, and spent 7 years in human space. You are unfit. Emperor Vorak's decree names me heir," Kira said, her voice carrying musical sounds that filled the vast space. "Do you challenge his final command? I challenge an order given by a dying man whose judgment was compromised by illness and sentiment." Thrace gestured and holographic displays appeared showing medical records, psychological evaluations, evidence carefully built to paint Vorak as incompetent. "The Council has reviewed the matter. We propose an alternative succession. Crown Princess Zyla of the Third Bloodline. Genetically pure and politically experienced." A dragon stepped forward. Tall, elegant, severe. Everything the Empire valued. "However," Thrace continued, his smile sharp, "we are not unreasonable. Princess Kira, you may keep your title and freedom. Simply acknowledge Crown Princess Zyla, surrender the hybrid infant for humane study, and accept ceremonial exile. Your human mate may accompany you." The chamber fell silent. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. They were offering Kira everything, except the thing that mattered, the safety of their daughter. It was cruel genius, putting her in a position where refusing meant looking power-hungry rather than protective. But they'd underestimated who they were dealing with. "No," Kira said simply. "No?" Thrace's eyebrows rose. "You would choose a hybrid infant over the welfare of the Empire?" "I choose truth over tradition," Kira corrected. "My father named me heir not out of sentiment, but because he finally understood what you refuse to see. Our empire is dying, General Thrace. Literally dying." "My father's illness? It's genetic degradation caused by 700 years of controlled breeding. 43% of imperial bloodlines show similar markers. We've bred ourselves into fragility in the name of purity." She stepped forward, holding Arya so everyone in the chamber could see her. "My daughter represents what you fear most. Proof that hybrid vigor exceeds pure stagnation. She's stronger than pure dragon infants. She's developing faster than pure human children. She's everything our empire could be if we stopped worshipping looks and started valuing survival." "Heresy," someone shouted from the council. "Science," Kira countered, "which I can prove if you give me the chance. Or you can kill her, claim your pure succession, and watch the Empire decay over the next century while younger species surpass us. Your choice." The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members arguing, younger dragons shouting support, Thrace calling for order. Marcus stood beside Kira, holding her hand, presenting united defiance against centuries of tradition. It was a young dragon who finally cut through the noise. A scientist Marcus later learned was Counselor Zith's daughter, carrying her mother's brilliance without the political baggage. "I propose a test," she called out. "Not of the infant, of Princess Kira's claims. Allow her to demonstrate the genetic benefits of hybrid vigor. Give her 1 year to prove her theories. If she succeeds, We acknowledge her succession and protect the child. If she fails, she gives up willingly. It was a compromise that satisfied no one, which meant it satisfied enough people to gain traction. After hours of debate, the council agreed conditionally. Kira would have 1 year to prove hybrid biology could benefit the Empire. But during that year, she had to remain on Draconia Prime where her work could be monitored. And Arya would be under constant surveillance, her development documented, her existence a perpetual test. She was too young to understand. Marcus wanted to refuse, wanted to grab his family and run to the furthest edge of known space. But Kira accepted, understanding what he was learning. Sometimes protecting your child means accepting deals that break your heart. They were given quarters in the Imperial Palace, not the lowest level this time, but not the upper chambers either. A middle position, literally and politically. Their rooms were beautiful and cold, all elegant lines and monitored spaces. That first night, after Arya finally fell asleep in a crib that cost more than Marcus's annual salary on Titan, he found Kira on the balcony overlooking the city's geometric perfection. "We're trapped," he said quietly. "Nicer cages, but trapped." "Yes. You could have given up. We could have run and spent the rest of our lives hiding, always afraid they'd find us, always wondering if the next transport ship carried soldiers." She turned to him, and her eyes held determination he recognized. "This way we fight. Maybe we lose. Probably we lose. But at least Arya grows up knowing we tried to change things, not just escape them." Marcus pulled her close, breathing in her scent that still smelled like workshop oil and coffee despite the palace's perfumed air. "Then we fight," he agreed. "But Kyra, when this is over, win or lose, we're going home. Back to Titan. Back to our actual home. Deal." They didn't know that several floors below, General Thrace was meeting with the hardliners of the Purity Legion, making plans that didn't care about 1-year trials or political compromise. They didn't know that Arya's very existence had become a symbol for progressives who saw hope for the Empire's future, and for extremists who saw existential threat. They didn't know that the real battle was only beginning, but they would learn. The first 6 months on Draconia Prime passed in tension that never lessened. Kyra worked 18 hours a day in the Imperial laboratories, carefully documenting every aspect of Arya's development, building case after case of scientific evidence that hybrid biology was not wrong but evolution. Arya thrived despite everything. At 6 months she could already sit up alone, babble in 2 languages at the same time, and had developed what Dr. Tanaka, who'd been brought in as medical consultant, described as remarkable accelerated thinking. Her immune system was more robust than any pure dragon or human infant. Her physical development exceeded both species. She was living proof of Kira's theory, and that made her more dangerous than ever. Marcus spent his days navigating Imperial Palace politics, attending meetings where he was systematically ignored, smiling politely through barely hidden insults about his inferior status, learning which dragons were potential allies and which actively wished his daughter dead. General Thrace definitely belonged to the second category. The commander of the Purity Legion appeared one night in their quarters unannounced, accompanied by 2 armed guards. Arya was sleeping in the next bedroom. Marcus instinctively positioned himself between Thrace and the bedroom door. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice low but firm. "To talk," Thrace said softly. "Only to talk, mechanic. Or can humans not civilize themselves enough for conversation?" Kira emerged from the adjacent laboratory, her golden eyes narrowing at the sight of the general. It's late, General. If you have official business, you can schedule it through proper channels. My business is unofficial. Thrace moved toward the balcony, looking down at the city below with its perfect geometry. I admire your determination, Princess. Truly. 6 months of exhaustive research, hundreds of hours of documentation, all to prove your daughter deserves to live. My daughter doesn't need to prove anything. She exists. That's enough. Is it enough? Thrace turned. And now his expression contained something cold and calculating. Tell me, Princess, how many dragons have seen your research and actually changed their minds? How many on the council have admitted you were right? The silence answered for her, exactly. Because it doesn't matter how much evidence you present. It doesn't matter how healthy your hybrid is. People don't change their fundamental beliefs because they're shown data. They change only when they fear the consequences of not changing. He smiled sharply. And you don't inspire fear, Princess. You inspire pity. Get out of our quarters, Marcus said, his voice dangerously calm. I'll leave. But first an offer. The last one you'll receive. Thrace pulled a data crystal from his robes. Transport out of the Empire. False identities. Resources enough to live comfortably in neutral space. Take this. Take your hybrid and disappear. Leave succession to those who understand what the Empire truly needs. And if we refuse? Kira asked. Then events will follow their natural course. Accidents happen, Princess. Even in the Imperial Palace. Especially to hybrids whose existence destabilizes centuries of tradition. His eyes moved toward the bedroom door where Arya slept. It would be a tragedy. But tragedies have a way of resolving complicated political problems. Marcus moved before consciously thinking, his fist connecting with Thrace's jaw with enough force to send the general staggering backward. The guards raised their weapons, but Thrace raised a hand, stopping them. Interesting, he said, touching his bleeding lip. The primitive has some fire, after all. He dropped the data crystal on the floor. The offer expires in 48 hours. After that, well, I can no longer guarantee your safety. After he left, Marcus and Kira didn't speak. They simply went to Arya's room, watching her sleep, her pale green skin glowing softly in Draconia Prime's light. We can't stay, Marcus said finally. Not if he's openly threatening her. If we leave, we lose everything. My father's protection, the possibility of changing the Empire, the chance to give Arya a future where she doesn't have to hide. If we stay, he'll kill her. Kira closed her eyes, tears tracing lines down her face. Then we fight one last time. We make seeing Arya impossible to ignore. Make her value so obvious that even the Council can't deny it. How? The Species Assembly. 3 weeks from now. Every member world of the Intergalactic Pact sends representatives. It'll be broadcast across 500 systems. She opened her eyes, and in them Marcus saw the determination that had made him fall in love with her. I present my research there, in front of the galaxy. I make killing Arya so publicly unacceptable that not even Thrace would dare. And if it doesn't work, then we take his data crystal and run as far as we can. The following 3 weeks were the most intense of Marcus's life. Kira worked almost without sleep, perfecting her presentation, compiling data, building a scientific case so solid it defied rejection. Marcus, meanwhile, worked back channels, connecting with human diplomats, contacting neutral colonies, building public support for what Kira was about to do. Arya, oblivious to everything, continued developing miraculously. She learned to crawl. She said her first word, "Papa," with dragon musical sounds that made him cry. She smiled at strangers in the palace corridors, her joy so genuine that even severe dragons found their expressions softening. It was the best evidence of Kira's theory that love crossing boundaries creates something stronger. then purity hiding behind walls. The night before the assembly, Marcus found Kira on the balcony again, Arya asleep against her shoulder, both silhouetted by the city's lights. "Ready?" he asked. Terrified, she admitted. "Tomorrow I tell the galaxy my daughter deserves to live. And if they don't believe me, if they vote against us, then we run together." Like always, she turned to him, and in the alien starlight she was still the most beautiful person he'd ever seen. "I love you, Marcus Chen, for always seeing me, for choosing me even when it meant losing everything, for being the father Arya deserves. I love you, Kira, for being brilliant and stubborn and brave in ways that make the rest of us look cowardly, for being the mother who turned the impossible into reality." They kissed, their daughter sleeping between them, on a planet that wanted them dead, the night before betting everything on one last hope. The species assembly convened in the Grand Hall of the Pact, a massive structure that could hold representatives from 500 different species, each with their own air, gravity, and environmental needs. Holograms floated in the air, transmitting the assembly to 1 billion observers across the galaxy. Kira stepped to the podium with Arya in her arms, Marcus at her side. The silence that fell was absolute. "My name is Kira," she began, her voice carrying musical sounds that translation systems struggled to process. "I am Princess of the Dragon Empire. This is my daughter, Arya. And I'm going to tell you why her existence matters to every one of you." What followed was an hour of the most brilliant scientific presentation Marcus had ever witnessed. Kira didn't appeal to emotion. She appealed to data. She showed comparative development rates. She documented immune system strength. She presented genetic analysis proving that hybrid biology wasn't dissolution, but synthesis. "Every species in this chamber faces evolutionary challenges," she said, her passion making her voice resonate. "Genetic degradation, environmental vulnerabilities, biological limits. We believe purity protects us, but evolutionary history proves otherwise. Diversity creates resilience, mixing creates strength." She lifted Arya higher, letting the cameras capture every detail of her daughter. "This child is proof not just of love between species but of biological potential. She's stronger than either of her parents. She's more adaptable than any pure line. She's the future, if we're brave enough to embrace it." The hall erupted in debate. Some species applauded, others protested. The Dragon Council looked divided. Some members clearly moved, others like Thrace radiating fury. Then a voice cut through the chaos. "Motion to vote," called an ambassador from a species Marcus didn't recognize. Something with tentacles and glowing parts. "I propose the Assembly formally recognize the rights of hybrid beings under intergalactic pact protection. That any action against such individuals based solely on their mixed heritage be considered a crime against species." The motion was seconded. Debate raged for hours. Marcus held Arya while Kira answered questions, refuted objections, defended their daughter's right to exist with every tool in her formidable intellect. Finally, after what felt like lifetimes compressed into hours, the vote was called. The holographic display showed results in real time. 342 species voting in favor, 89 against, 69 abstaining. The motion passed. The hall erupted in chaos again, some celebrating, some protesting, some simply stunned that the galaxy had just declared hybrid life legally protected. Marcus grabbed Kira, pulling her and Arya into an embrace while cameras captured the moment across 500 star systems. They'd won. Or so they thought. What they didn't see was General Thrace leaving the hall, his expression carved from ice and rage. What they didn't hear was the coded transmission he sent to Purity Legion operatives stationed throughout the capital. What they didn't know was that legal protection meant nothing to extremists who believed they were saving their species from corruption. The attack came 3 hours later as Marcus and Kira were returning to their quarters, still celebrating, still believing the worst was behind them. 4 dragon soldiers in unmarked armor appeared from a service corridor. Weapons raised, Marcus reacted on instinct, throwing himself between the soldiers and his family. Feeling the searing pain of an energy blast catch his shoulder, he went down hard, vision swimming, dimly aware of Kira screaming, of Arya crying, of boots approaching. Then other sounds, shouts, weapons fire, the heavy footsteps of palace guards responding. The assassination attempt had been clumsy, desperate, the kind of thing that happens when extremists stop caring about consequences. When Marcus's vision cleared, he was in the palace medical center, Kira beside him holding Arya, both unharmed. Dr. Tanaka was treating his shoulder with the kind of grim efficiency that said she'd seen too many wounds lately. "You're lucky," she said. "Another 2 inches and it would have hit your heart. As it is, you'll heal fine, though you'll have an impressive scar." "The soldiers?" Marcus asked. "Dead. Palace guards killed them all. They're being identified now, but early evidence suggests they were Purity Legion operatives acting without official permission." Tanaka's expression was tight. "General Thrace has been taken into custody. The council is in emergency session. This is unprecedented." Governor Castellanos appeared in the doorway looking haggard. "I thought you should know. The Dragon Council has issued a formal apology to the Intergalactic Assembly. General Thrace has been stripped of rank and will face trial for treason. The Purity Legion is being disbanded." He paused. "And Princess Kira, the Council has formally recognized your succession claim. You're now Crown Princess with full authority pending your coronation." Kira looked down at Arya, then at Marcus with his bandaged shoulder, then back at Castellanos. "When can we leave?" The governor blinked. "Leave? Princess, you just won. The Empire is yours. Everything your father wanted to give you. A throne soaked in blood. A culture that tried to kill my daughter. A place where my husband will always be the primitive who married above his station." She stood, settling Arya more securely against her hip. "I don't want the Empire, Governor. I never did. I wanted safety for my family. Now that we have it, legal protection, galactic recognition, proof that hybrid life is valued, we're going home." "Home?" Castellanos looked confused. "To where?" Marcus smiled through the pain, understanding flooding through him. "To Titan, to a converted storage compartment and a workshop and terrible coffee, and a colony that needs good engineers. But the Empire..." "We'll find another heir," Kira said. "One who actually wants the job. One who won't spend every day longing for methane rain and the hum of atmospheric processes." Kira looked at Marcus and her expression was pure determination mixed with relief. "I've spent my whole life trying to be what others wanted. First trying to be the perfect dragon princess, then trying to prove my hybrid daughter deserved to exist. I'm done performing. I want to go home and be a mother and an engineer and a wife in that order." The coronation was scheduled for 2 weeks away. Kira formally declined, submitting her giving up to the council with a document so legally airtight that no one could challenge it. She named Crown Princess Zyla as her successor, the same dragon Thrace had tried to install, but now chosen freely rather than under force. Zyla accepted with grace and privately thanked Kira for the gift. "I would have been a puppet," Zyla admitted during their final meeting. "Thrace's tool. Now I have the throne without his strings. And I'll remember what your daughter represents." "Change is coming to the Empire, Kira. Slowly, but it's coming. Make sure it does, Kira said, because if I hear you've reversed the hybrid protection laws, I'll come back, and I won't be asking politely. They left Draconia Prime on the same civilian transport that had brought them, but this time with an honor guard and formal recognition. The galaxy watched as the princess who'd won an empire chose instead a converted storage compartment and a mechanic with a scarred shoulder and a smile that made everything worthwhile. Epilogue. Coming home. Titan appeared in the viewport like a promise kept. Orange atmosphere, methane storms, industrial sectors glowing against eternal dusk. Marcus felt something in his chest unclench. A tension he'd been carrying for months finally releasing. Home, he said softly. Home, Kira agreed, Arya babbling happily in her arms as if she recognized the view. Governor Castellanos had arranged for their old quarters to be prepared, but when they arrived, they found something unexpected. The converted storage compartment had been transformed, expanded into a proper home using adjacent spaces, with a nursery for Arya, a laboratory for Kira, and even a small workshop for Marcus. The colony had done it collectively, civilians donating time and materials. Engineers building with the kind of precision usually reserved for life support systems. A banner hung across the entrance. Welcome home. Dr. Tanaka was waiting, along with what looked like half the colony's population. We figured you'd come back, she said, smiling. You're too stubborn to stay away. And we wanted you to know you have family here, real family. The weeks that followed felt like returning to a life Marcus hadn't realized he'd lost. He went back to maintaining atmospheric processes. Kira returned to solving impossible engineering problems. Arya learned to walk in corridors where everyone knew her name, learned to talk in 2 languages that the colony's children found endlessly fascinating, grew up surrounded by humans who saw her hybrid nature as wonderful rather than wrong. They had a second child 3 years later, a son they named Valen, who had his father's brown eyes and his mother's green skin and his sister's impossible joy. Then a third, another daughter named Lyra, who inherited her mother's engineering genius and her father's terrible sense of humor. Their family became legend in the colony, but the kind of legend that walked through corridors and said hello, that fixed broken equipment and taught children math, that made terrible coffee and laughed at their own mistakes. 10 years after leaving Draconia Prime, Kira received a transmission from Crown Princess Zyla. The Empire had officially abolished genetic purity laws. Hybrid families were forming across Dragon space. Scientists were documenting the benefits of genetic diversity. The culture was changing, slowly but changing. You started this, Zyla's message said, by refusing to be what we demanded, by choosing love over empire. Thank you. Kira watched the message with Marcus beside her, their 3 children playing in the next room, and felt something she'd never quite felt before. Complete peace. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asked. Giving up the throne? Everything you could have had? Kira looked at their children, then at the view outside their window, Titan's industrial sector, the atmospheric processes humming their eternal song, Saturn hanging in the sky like a jewel. I gave up nothing, she said. I gained everything. That night, as methane rain fell in slow motion and their children slept peacefully, Marcus and Kira stood together on their small balcony, watching the colony they'd saved continue its work of survival. They held each other in the amber light, 2 people who'd chosen impossible love and made it work through stubbornness and brilliance, and refusing to accept the universe's limitations. You know what I think? Marcus said. I think we won. We definitely won. Kira leaned into him. We got everything that matters. Love, family, home. A place where our children can be themselves without apology. And terrible coffee. And terrible coffee. She laughed, that musical sound that still made his heart skip. Though I've been working on a new blend, I think this one might actually be drinkable. I'll believe it when I taste it. They stood there as Titan turned beneath its eternal sky, as Saturn's rings painted everything in shades of gold. As their impossible family slept safe behind them, they'd fought empires and prejudice and politics. They'd risked everything for the right to simply exist, and in the end, they'd won not by becoming what others wanted, but by being exactly who they were. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't conquering the universe. It's building a home where love matters more than genetics, where children can be hybrid and happy, where a mechanic and a princess can share terrible coffee and call it perfect. Sometimes the weight we choose to carry is exactly the weight we need, and sometimes impossibility is just another word for love.